joining in here. It looks like we're a little sparse, but we'll get started with our introductions and things. I'm Mackenzie, foodborne epi at ADHS, and today we have a rousing good time ahead of us. Brenda Garrett is going to talk to us about special exposures. So this should be pretty cool. Talk about some of the heavy hitters for salmonella, how to talk to folks about it, what kind of questions to ask. Should be really helpful. So just a reminder to mute your phones when you're not talking. Looks like everybody's got their name doing great. If you, Elfrida, you're your only exception here. If you want to, hi, we're glad you're here. If you right click on your name, or on the dots on the top right, you can, or just on your face, you can select rename and you can put your name in the little box that's showing so that people know better who you are, if you so desire. And I guess we will just get started with our icebreaker question. So tell us who you are, what you do, and the question for today is, what is the weirdest thing that you've ever eaten? So I'm Mackenzie, foodborne epi at ADHS, and I would say the thing that people tend to think is the weirdest that I really, really like is foie gras, which is duck liver. It is so delicious and fatty and great, but it is kind of a weird food. And a lot of people I think Pamela Anderson was on a campaign to save the duck, so she probably wouldn't agree with my enjoying it. All right, next up, Caitlin. You're still muted. Okay, let's go to Brenda.
I'm in.
Oh, never mind, Caitlin, okay.
Sorry guys, I got locked out of my computer. Hi, I'm Caitlin, foodborne epi here at ADHS. I don't think it's actually very weird, but maybe because I've lived in Arizona my whole life. But rattlesnake?
Ooh, I've never had it. That sounds good. Brenda.
Hello, I am Brenda Garrett, waterborne disease coordinator here at ADHS. The weirdest thing I've ever eaten, which may surprise some people, is chicken heart. I did not enjoy it, but I tried it.
I take my back. I had cow heart once. I did not enjoy it. Mary Lee.
I'm Mary Lee Kellis. I'm the outbreak epidemiologist at ADHS. Probably the strangest thing I ever ate is honestly not even that weird. It's like an entire fish, where like the head's still attached. I didn't eat the head. I just ate the other stuff, but it just looked weird on the plate. But a lot of people eat fish that way all the time. The weirdest thing I eat that my kids think is weird is cottage cheese, which is a normal food that's very healthy and good for you.
Did you like those little fried eyeballs staring at you? That's what I can't handle about that. I had someone serve me that once, and I was like, you gotta take care of that head. Ashley, what about you?
Hi everyone, Ashley Rankin serving as your tech support. And Mackenzie, I can't think of anything super weird. I mean, I had octopus once. Squid. I think squid, yeah. Did not enjoy it.
Was it fried? It's better fried.
It was in a gumbo, so it's like gumbo and yeah, slimy.
Maricopa County.
Hi, I'm Anna with CDI here at Maricopa. The weirdest food I've ever eaten is probably kangaroo.
Cool.
Really? Yeah, you can share that with us. I'm Katie. I'm a surveillance nurse. I was in Bosnia once, and my host family served me a cow's head, including tongue and brain, which was interesting.
Nope. Hi, I'm Kayla here, a disease surveillance nurse, and sad to say I'm not very adventurous when it comes to eating different foods, so I have not had anything weird.
Katie, you are winning right now. If somebody can top it, I'll be even more disgusted. Jenny, what have you got? Jenny, you're still muted.
Oh, sorry. Okay, can you hear me? Oh, hello? Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So I was gonna say I'll be embarrassed to say that I've actually tried raw chicken, and this was like 5 years ago when I obviously did not know the risks of salmonella. And also I was living overseas in South Korea. I was in a remote village. They said it was super safe and they prepared it in a way, I can't remember, but I had a very small piece, but still, like, I would never do that now, what I know now. But yeah, I almost forgot about that one. But yeah, I would never do that again. I didn't get sick or anything, but now I'm like, what was I thinking?
Well, hopefully if you come across someone who has eaten raw chicken, you can find a way to relate with them.
Yeah. Okay.
They won't feel judged.
Okay.
Yuma County.
Okay. Hi, my name is Mireya. I'm a public health nurse, and I guess lengua, which is cow's tongue in tacos, common.
Hi, good morning. Alicia Gonzalez, public health nurse. The strangest thing I've eaten, it was actually last year. I went to Peru and I ate Peruvian guinea pig, cuy. So
Sweet.
it was fried and apparently it's like a delicacy over there. So
yeah.
I don't think I would eat it again because I didn't like it. So.
Mary Lee, did you have any guinea pig in Ecuador?
No, there was a lot of cuy that was served there, but I never had any.
I didn't have any either. I'm proud of you, Alicia, for trying it. Benito, do you want to jump in and introduce yourself?
Yes, I had, a long time ago, I ate, ant eggs. Those are in Mexico, central Mexico. They call it camoles. So you can eat those with vegetables and all those things. They're pretty good. But I didn't know that there was those things until they told me after I said, oh my. So nothing happened, thank God.
I'm sorry, what kind of eggs did you say?
Ant, E-N-T. They call it
eggs.
Yes.
Okay. They had to have been tiny, right?
Was it tiny?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They fry them and they add vegetables. So there's like, they say it's like eating, corn with vegetables, something like that, which is not true.
Okay.
But that tastes good.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Yuma County. Martha.
There we go. It took me a while. The weirdest thing that I've ate was oysters. I wanted to try it out. My mom worked at a seafood restaurant and I just said, the heck with it. So I ate like a few and I didn't really like them, so I don't eat them. That was it.
I'm still a little afraid of them, especially raw.
You should be. They taste gross.
Yeah. They don't look good. Elfrida, you are just joining us, so would you mind to let everybody know where you're working and your position as well as your weird food?
Actually, I'm from Tuba City Regional Healthcare Operation. I'm the infection preventionist here. A lot of the stuff that I do is actually most of the time is refer to our patients to investigate communicable diseases. But I like to learn how other people are asking questions so that I can provide some type of guidance to our patients if they ever need it. The weirdest thing that I have ever eaten is actually sheep's blood. So with the sheep's blood, what they do is once they butcher it, they get the blood together in a bowl. They add potatoes, meat to it, onions, and they boil it up in the sheep's stomach. And they call it a blood sausage. They also put blood into cornmeal, and they made like what's called kneel down bread. It's a blood with meat in corn husk. That's what we eat.
I love how much we're learning. I jumped. Somebody started talking. Who was that? I don't know. That is fascinating. I'm learning a lot. Nick.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick. I'm the CDI at Pinal County. The weirdest thing that I've eaten is a cricket. Yes.
Was it covered in chocolate?
It was.
All right. That's the way to do it. Demetria.
Hi, everyone. My name is Demetria Carr, and I'm a second-year MPH student at U of A. And the weirdest thing I had was also cricket, but it was roasted, and it was a street food in Uganda, and it just looked really weird. So I think I actually just had like a little nibble of a leg, and it tasted like popcorn.
That sounds all right. I could do that. Erica.
Hi, I'm Erica. I work at the University of Arizona as an epidemiologist. I'd like to say oysters are good. I like them even though they're bad. But my weirdest food I've eaten, I think, or I still eat, is bee pollen. Apparently it's really good for allergies. So.
Very cool. Thanks. Elizabeth Antone. If you're trying to talk, you are still muted. Okay, we'll come. Oh, go ahead. Nope, we heard you for a second. There you are.
All right. Oh, good morning, everyone. So the weirdest thing I ever eaten is raw kidney, and either from beef or buffalo.
Wow. Very interesting. Did you like it?
Oh yeah, it's like a delicacy from where I come from.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. And finally, Coconino County.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Celia. I'm the Communicable Disease Associate here. And I think the weirdest thing I've eaten is escargot. It's snails. I'm Jonica. I'm a Communicable Disease Admin. And I think the weirdest thing I've ever eaten was fried rattlesnake, but it really wasn't that weird because it tasted like fried chicken. Hi, I'm Mary Ellen. I'm a nurse in the clinic and I manage the communicable disease program and TB and STDs. And the weirdest thing I've ever eaten was kudu. I had a friend who went to South Africa and hunted a kudu and invited me over for dinner. So I had tasted kudu.
I'm sorry, it's a little muffled. What kind of animal is that?
It's big like an elk, and
okay.
Twisted horns. Has a horn on each side, and they twist and go straight up. And it's a pretty dry meat. It's old, and it tastes as venison, kind of like deer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very popular meat or common meat in South Africa.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Well, this has just been a real enlightening question we've asked here. I like that one. Okay, well, it is time for Brenda Garrett to dazzle us. So, Brenda, we will hand it over to you. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Garrett. I work here at ADHS, mostly in water, but also help out the food team. Today, I am going to talk pretty much all things special exposures, which I have interpreted to mean animals mostly, with some other side things, which is great because now that we've all discussed all the animals that we've eaten, we're going to talk about how they have made us sick, probably. So, good. I have only pulled up briefly the the Salmonella questionnaire and compared it with the E. coli questionnaire. And for the most part, they're similar. So I'm just going to walk us through that a little bit before I get started, because I think there are some important questions in that little brief section on both questionnaires that I wanted to talk about. So first, very interestingly, the first question that it will ask you after all the nice food questions is about, did they work or live on a farm, dairy, or ranch? Which is great. I'm not quite sure why it needed to be first, but we can throw that in here for maybe it'll give you some idea of whether or not, like, where to go with this, what other animals you might want to ask. However, the next question, which I think is really interesting, is ask any contact with animals or animal products. This question is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, people are either going to say yes because they think like, oh, I went to a petting zoo, I touched a goat, or maybe they work on a farm, which you might have already brought up for them, and they'll think like, oh yeah, that horse. But a lot of times people do not associate animal with pets. So the next question, which, let me go back, asks, do you own a pet? People who might have said no, they didn't have any contact with animals, might say yes, they have a pet. So just something to consider. Maybe a way to phrase this when you're asking people is, sometimes the way I have done in the past is kind of a combination of both, is, do you have any pets or animals in your home? This is hopefully to get them to think about in their home, and then we can worry about maybe outside, like in a petting zoo or other setting. Hopefully this will also gear them to start thinking about in the home, meaning if there was like a reptile or like a snake, a lizard, thing like that, people sometimes don't consider them as pets either. They're just like, well, that's not a pet, because a pet is a dog, a cat, gerbil, whatever, not that thing that lives in my brother's room. Like that's his pet, that's his thing. So maybe thinking of it inside in your house or your structure, do you have an animal? So the next part of that then talks us through a little bit more, like, did you have a pet? Was your pet sick? Which is a good question to ask, but there are a lot of these bacteria, these illnesses like salmonella and campy, that can show up in animals even if the animal isn't sick. So while it's nice to know if the animal is sick, this may not always be like a sure thing, like, oh, if the animal is sick, then that's probably where we got it from. And there are a couple other ones. Did you visit a zoo, pet store? Did you have any contact with a bird, a duck, baby chick? And then reptile, amphibian exposure. So it kind of takes you through those specific animals on the salmonella one. Let's dig down now into the reptile. We're going to go that. Because the question just asks, did you have any exposure to a reptile or amphibian, turtle, iguana, snake, or frog? This doesn't really give you much more information. This is a very yes/no kind of question. However, because of how common we have found salmonella and other diseases to be in these type of animals, this is one, if somebody says yes, you really want to start digging down deeper and asking more probing questions. Where did they purchase this? How long have they had it? Where does it live? Does it stay in its cage? Do you ever take it out of the cage, let it roam around on the kitchen floor? Where do you clean this cage? Do you do it in the sink, like in the bathroom sink or the kitchen sink? Do you take it, outside? Who else? And then you can even go further, like, who else is handling this? Like, if you're talking to a parent and the parent is saying like, oh, it's my teenage son's, he's the only one that's responsible for it, he's the only one that deals with it, but you're interviewing about a baby, you may just want to double check with some of these questions, because it's very easy that just coming in contact with the environment that this turtle, this reptile could have, had some cross-contamination if the baby, if they cleaned it in the bathroom sink, didn't bleach down the sink area very well, could have been very easy that the baby could have come and got that bacteria in its mouth after cleaning or something. So these are the types of questions you want to really dig down. And another thing about reptiles too, especially when it comes to young children, you may want to probe in a couple of different ways about this. So maybe not just in the home, but in like neighbors or extended family if they spend a lot of time going to grandma and grandpa's house during the day. Well, do grandma and grandpa have any of these types of animals? Does the daycare have, pet snake? Although that seems terrifying. I don't know why they would do that, but just in case, you never know. Daycares are weird, I imagine. So, and another thing, it's not, as much information as you want to get about this animal, the better. Even what do you feed it for snakes? We have found salmonella in the feeder mice that you feed the snakes, and in the bedding and the water bowl, like just covered. Everything is just gross. They're just gross. That's all there is to that. So besides that, the next part of that is just in general, I usually like to at the end of the interview. So you're doing all your interview, you're getting all your questions done. At the very end, that is when I usually try to give some education about handling reptiles or turtles, maybe suggesting that they do make sure they bleach down surfaces after they clean turtle cage, reptile cage, whatever, making sure they wash their hands really, really well after touching it, or even just the outside of the container, the enclosure. Maybe even having a separate thing outside where they clean it, like taking the whole terrarium if they can outside, putting it in a little bowl, I don't know, tub to hold it, and then cleaning everything outside. So that area is all segregated off from the house. Just trying to keep everything as clean as possible. It is also recommended that people don't actually have reptiles in the house if there's a child under 5. So, sometimes that can be difficult if you're on the phone with a parent that they already have an animal, but just something to keep in mind that is a recommendation. And one other thing I'd like to mention about turtles is that the sale of tiny turtles, which are turtles that have a shell less than 4 inches. So if you think of a deck of cards, I think those are about 3.5. So if it's smaller than that is illegal and banned by the FDA. So that could be another question you want to ask. How big is your turtle? Where did you get this? Just something else to think about. So another question that was on the questionnaire, moving on, was about birds, ducks, and baby chicks. And this is a great question for right now because, just in case anyone was wondering, Sunday is Easter, and what I have found in the past is Easter is apparently a time when parents decide that now is the time to give their child a little baby chick for Easter. So cute, so adorable. Oh, you just want to kiss it and get salmonella all up in your mouth. It's a great time. But that should be great as an investigator, if you can remember that. That is an excellent point. Easter is an excellent holiday to really probe about. Did you handle any chicks? Did you handle any ducklings, any baby poultry around this time of year? Even if you didn't have one in your house, did you visit a pet store? Did you go to an Easter parade or an Easter event where there was this tiny little bird that your child then decided to snuggle and put in their mouth? Kids are weird. They probably do it. So again, with even just live poultry in general that they may have in their house, or not in their house, but in their house outside, yard. That's the word. That's the house outside is yard. Do you want to probe about, do you get any eggs from it? Do you get any eggs even from neighbors that have chickens? Probing about cleaning, what feeding schedule. Again, do you come inside and take your shoes off right away after visiting the coop? Do you change your clothes? Who's responsible for dealing with them? Do you come inside and wash your hands right away? There are so many questions about these like animals that when you get right to our questionnaire, it's one little line, but feel free to just go off. Like if somebody at the beginning of an interview happens to mention, like, I think on the food questionnaire, if they start talking about, oh, well, I get eggs, fresh eggs from my chickens outside. What a great segue. You can totally jump ahead and start asking questions about those chickens then, if that seems right. If it feels good, if that's the direction they want to go, like just go with it, just feel it out. So don't feel, and this just applies for the questionnaire in general. If you know it well enough, you can jump around. You don't have to go in the exact order. You do want to try to make sure you get all the questions, but don't be afraid to kind of move around if that's what they're going to talk about next, which that may seem obvious to some people, but it took me a long time to realize I could do that. So just wanted to throw that out there. Let's see, I wanted to make sure I mentioned everything about that. Yes, so poultry, again, is another one that you really want to ask about any indirect contact. So again, with little kids, you may want to ask, like, yeah, you have the chickens. Are you sure that they didn't have any contact? They didn't touch them, or, go outside? Because it could be that just coming inside with shoes on tracked the bacteria through the house, and just playing on the carpet, fingers in the mouth, you got sick that way. So again, the education maybe at the end of the interview is a perfect time to remind people the best cleaning practices, and maybe leave your shoes outside. Have special chicken shoes that you don't bring in the house. Even if you should call them their chicken shoes. Okay. One fun chicken fact, if anyone is interested, since the 1990s, there have been 53 salmonella and just salmonella outbreaks linked to live poultry. So again, if somebody brings up poultry, live chicken or turkey or duck, just probe as much as you want, really, or as much as they'll allow you to about that, because there is a possibility that, at least with salmonella, there's a good chance that it might have come from that. A couple of other more animal related, but not necessarily salmonella related questions. I figured this would be a good time to mention it, since we are talking all things special exposures, which is basically animals. For Giardia, I recently learned that dogs get this all, like Giardia, dogs get Giardia all the time. And it is very easily transmitted to humans. And this is something that vets will screen for on a regular basis. So again, when it asks if your pet was sick, for dogs don't always get diarrhea from Giardia. I mean, in a lot of cases they do, but not always. So that is something, if a vet has mentioned that the dog has Giardia, it may be something to consider when handling pet waste. So again, providing that education to them about, after, if you're ever doing a Giardia interview and they mention that, just, always really, really good hand washing after handling any pet waste, and making sure they clean and sanitize if the dog has an accident in the house. The same thing I would like to mention with Campylobacter and puppies. Puppies are considered less than 6 months. And so they just have campy all the time, healthy or sick. It's just natural, I guess, in their system. So one question that it doesn't say on the campy form, I know this, it just asks, do you have any pets, I think. If you do get a campy, you can always further probe out, like, oh, how old is your dog? When did you get it? What was the breed? Probing even more, because there have been recent outbreaks of Campylobacter linked to puppies. So something else just to ponder as we go through. Okay. We're going to switch gears a little bit right now to the question of raw milk. So not on the animal question, but still animal related in somewhat. So for those that don't know, the sale of raw milk is legal in Arizona in most cases. The Department of Agriculture is in charge of the sale of certain raw milk products. And if you actually just Google raw milk, Department of Agriculture, Arizona, there's this nice little form that comes up, this handy list of all the places that are allowed to sell raw milk. And at the very top, I'm just going to read this because I think this gives all the information you need, is that the sale of certain raw milk and raw milk products is legal in Arizona, but the dairy must be licensed by the Department of Agriculture and meet grade A standards. So the department inspects dairies to ensure good sanitation to minimize the risk with raw milk, but this does not guarantee a safe product. All containers with raw milk are required to be labeled with the following statement. And that statement has to say, raw milk, not pasteurized, and may contain organisms injurious to your health. So this is important for a couple of reasons. One, that yes, in Arizona, if somebody mentions raw milk, you might want to probe even more so and ask them where they purchased it, because it could be, could be one of the ones that is on our list and totally legal. But there's a good chance that it might be being sold illegally, and not that, you want to like turn anybody in, but that is good information to have, and we can share with the Department of Agriculture. So if they mention the raw milk or a product like a cheese that was made with raw milk, feel free to ask, oh, where did you purchase it? What date? Any consumption, like how long have you been getting it here? Is this something that somebody brought back from somewhere? And that could be like a cheese or a whole milk situation. So with raw milk, there have been a number of outbreaks with lots of different pathogens linked to raw milk, not just salmonella, but E. coli, Cryptosporidium, Campylobacter, Listeria, and brucellosis. So it can be quite harmful to folks if they're consuming this. But again, people who drink raw milk, or who they may be quite passionate about their raw milk consumption. They do feel that, from what I understand, that it's more nutritious, it has better health benefits. From everything I've read, pasteurization does not diminish the nutritional value, but a lot of times people, they have already made up their mind, and so it's not necessarily an education, but just a letting them know you still want to educate, but don't feel like you have to change their minds. It's more of a letting them know the risks. But again, at the end of the interview is probably best on this one, and just letting them know the risks, and that could be a cause of where they might have gotten sick. Another fun raw milk fact, because this is again another fun subject about outbreaks. From 2007 to 2012, there were 81 outbreaks linked to raw milk, and most of those were from Campylobacter. Next was E. coli, and then salmonella make up the top 3 of those 81 outbreaks in that short amount of time, which that's crazy. So again, if somebody mentions raw milk or a product like a cheese made with raw milk, really try your hardest to probe on that more. And in MedSys, I believe it doesn't give a ton of space, or it doesn't look like there's a ton of space to write all this. Feel free to use the notes section to add all these details. If you feel like you suddenly got their whole history of shopper records for raw milk or whatever, just feel free to type that all in. More information, the better. Don't feel like you're going to bore us. We will love to read those case notes. Let's see. One other fun fact about raw milk. I was always under the impression that the way the raw milk was contaminated was through the environment, but actually, even if everything is a completely clean environment, the milk can be contaminated inside the cow. So while they're milking, it could already be just in the body of the cow and come out contaminated. So even if someone says, no, I know my cows, like I do it in a clean room in a hospital, like there's no way that the environment caused this. Could just be the cow. Sorry. I thought that was very interesting when I found that out, because I had always assumed it was the environment. Okay, so next little special how-to is we're going to get off the animal train and jump onto maybe an actual train. I don't know, because we're talking about travel. So travel, the way it is right now, people, I think it just says, did you travel from your city or something? People interpret travel very differently. Sometimes people think travel means like, oh, I'm going on a vacation. I'm doing something fun. I traveled. Not necessarily like, I had to take my 3-year-old nephew to the fair over in Pinal. You know, that wasn't fun. I didn't have any fun doing that. They don't consider travel. But to me, we still want to know. We still want to get that information. So if your case did anything like really outside the city or anything, abnormal, I would say, feel free to use that travel box and put that in there. Even if you're unsure, again, more information is still better than, leaving it blank. We want those details. We can sort it out later. So for travel, there's a couple different ways that you could ask this. One, did you travel or go anywhere outside the United States? And this may be especially important if they travel to Mexico or Sonora. And really, if you find that that's the case, you can dig as much as you want. Try to get names. Try to get places they stayed, restaurants or places they shopped at. Really get all that information, because we can share that with Border Health in Sonora. So we do use that information and can share that, which can be really helpful. But even if they went outside the country and outside of even Mexico, Canada, Europe, still it doesn't hurt to get as much information as possible. And I do realize that can be very difficult, especially if some of these places have a lot of foreign names people may not remember. But really getting as much information as possible. Maybe try to get descriptions of the building or the food that was served as much as they can be really helpful to us, so we can share with partners if needed, CDC or CDC could share elsewhere if needed. Let's see. So then I think another one, so that was outside the US travel, then outside the state travel. So that could be with other states. That information at the state level can be really helpful. We can share that information with other states. So I think a couple summers ago, when there was a large Cryptosporidium outbreak, we did have cases that were actually part of a national outbreak from Ohio. Ohio had a big crypto outbreak, and so some of our cases actually were from Ohio, had exposure in Ohio, and we were able to share that with them. So you never know at the time when it might, be relevant to another state, but still making sure you fill in all that information in MedSys. Even if you think, it didn't happen in Arizona, what does it matter? No, it really can be very important to have that. Yeah, so again, and even with cities, like if you find that travel between cities, we can help arrange that if you think it's relevant that we reach out to another county to let them know, or we can pull it for them. So again, travel, another one that's really important to make sure you fill in. And I think the Board of Health would be sad if I didn't mention this. There is still that spot where you can mark if they had binational, which is they went to Mexico or Sonora. So make sure you're filling that in with a yes when you do, if you do hear that they had travel to Mexico or Sonora. And so I think that was everything I wanted to talk about. Does anyone have any questions for me or anything else they'd like to add?
I do.
Yes.
If no one else does. That was very thorough and great, Brenna. Number one, chicken shoes. I hope that they look like actual chicken feet to be kept outside your house.
Of course. I'm patent pending that right now, obviously.
Yep. So the other thing is, feel free and please I encourage you to let somebody at the state know. If you do find that someone's had raw milk and you think that it might be illegal, if you go onto the Department of Ag website and don't find the name of that place where they say they got the raw milk, let us know and we can send that over to Ag and hopefully put a stop to that. And I think Brenna did a really great job talking about how it can be a little bit of a touchy subject with raw milk. I once had a case who was a young child, and she was giving raw milk to her child, but she was also pregnant. And I basically said, you know, like, you probably still want to keep drinking this stuff, but I do suggest that if you're in a state like pregnancy or someone very young or very old, maybe not consider giving it to them. So totally not telling them what you're doing is awful, but letting them know that they're at higher risk during that time in their life. And as far as travel, something we often see, and I think this has a lot to do with the case's perceptions. So sometimes you'll have cases who have traveled during part of their exposure period, but not all. And so it's easy for someone to say, you know, I think I just got sick on my trip. And if we just fall into that trap and just assume that they got it during their trip, we may miss some critical exposures they had while they were home, either before or after their trip. So please remember that it may take a little extra digging for you to get them to talk about their time while they were here because they're convinced they got it during their trip. But I see this quite a bit where it's just, okay, you traveled, that's probably where you got it. And that's not always the case. We have a question from Maricopa. Why has the FDA banned ownership of baby turtles, the tiny turtles? And it's not the ownership, it's the sales of them. And it's because little kids try to eat them and put them in their mouth and get sick from it. So lots of evidence of them causing outbreaks is what has made FDA make this illegal. Okay, any other thoughts or questions for Brenna before we move on to our case investigation?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
How small do the turtles have to be again to be illegal to sell?
It's less than 4 inches in diameter.
Yeah, in the shell. The shell.
Okay, and I also had another question about unpasteurized eggs. So I heard that unpasteurized eggs, you can keep them at room temperature as long as when you use them, you don't wash them, because once you wash the outside of an egg, it loses its protective quality. Is that true?
So this is an interesting thing that we talk about here quite a bit. Eggs that you buy at the grocery store are unpasteurized. They have been cleaned, which is different from, say, a farm fresh egg that you get from someone's yards from their chickens. But typically your grocery store eggs are unpasteurized. They are relatively safe, but we do still ask about them. So when on the questionnaire it says, did you eat eggs? Were they raw or unpasteurized? A lot of people think, oh, I got them from the grocery store. They were pasteurized, but they're really not. As far as the cleaning the fresh eggs that you would get from a chicken in a backyard, I have also heard this. Does anybody know exactly what the deal is? I think it's just safe to assume that they are contaminated, and with keeping them at room temperature, I think we refrigerate them because it's going to inhibit growth of bacteria, but in much of the rest of the world, they do not refrigerate eggs. We're kind of weird that Americans do that. But Mary Lee loves talking about eggs, so I'm going to let her take it over.
Mackenzie, you know me too well. You said most of what was on my mind, but one thing I did want to mention, something that I recently learned is that they have tested flocks of birds, and the birds that are in the smaller flocks, like you'd have in a backyard, tend to have higher carriage rates of salmonella compared to those massive farms of chickens. That was an interesting fact for me. Also, chickens that are free range, that have open access to the environment, are more likely to carry salmonella because they have more exposure to salmonella. So those are a couple of things, a couple of reasons why the eggs you buy at the grocery store are relatively safe. I heard a study from a long time ago that 1 in 20,000 eggs that you buy at the grocery store has Salmonella enteritidis. But the the eggs that you buy from a small flock are more likely to be contaminated with salmonella. And then just to echo what Mackenzie said, I think generally the recommendation is to refrigerate eggs, regardless of where you got them. I think that's the proper food safety practice.
She's our egg-spert.
I also have a little passion for raw milk, but there's not as many puns you can do. So thanks for the excellent.
Yes, thank you. We love our puns here. We have two great questions that have come up. So Erica said, if you have your own cow or goat, can you consume that raw milk? I'm assuming that's not illegal. And that's correct. You can do whatever you want with your private animal to a certain extent before you're going to get in trouble legally. But as far as drinking its milk, yes, you can. It's really a wider distribution problem that would be concerning if you're selling it and sharing it with the public. That would increase their health risks. And Elfrida said, so Campy, Salmonella, and Shigella are found in the stool, but we do see them in urine. Do we do the same investigation? And the answer is yes. This is a great question that is often really difficult to understand, but the way that we look at it is these organisms have to come in through the mouth. Sometimes they'll not have diarrhea when they have a urine culture. It makes it hard to pin down an incubation period, what to focus on in the interview. Going back 2 weeks before onset of UTI symptoms or collection is a good starting point. If you want to extend that, nobody's going to be upset with you if you want to go a month or so. And you can look at the interview as something as, what do you usually eat? But yes, we would ask that you do get a full food history on these urine cultures. They often come up in multi-state outbreaks. And it's really frustrating when we see that it hasn't been interviewed because it was a urine culture, because eventually these do become matches, and it's really critical that we understand what those folks ate too. So those are awesome questions. So we are running a little bit short on time. I want to make sure that we have time for Yuma County to present their case investigation. Anybody have any burning questions that can't wait until after Yuma County chat?
I have two things to add to it, to what you guys were saying about if you have an egg that's unrefrigerated, the moment you refrigerate it, it has to continue to be refrigerated. You can't take it out and keep it on your counter anymore because that's not food safe. And then there was a paper that came out a couple years ago that said that 1/4 of urinary tract infections are actually foodborne related. So I thought that was interesting.
Those are awesome things to share. Thanks, Erica. Very cool. Okay, Yuma County, I believe, Alicia, you were going to tell us about your case investigation. Cool, take it away.
Hi, so this was an interesting case that we stumbled upon. So we originally got this report as a blood culture. Brief history, this is a 13-year-old male. So originally a blood culture for salmonella. So I ended up contacting the mom. Just what was interesting was, the patient didn't have any diarrhea. It actually did say on the, because this patient was seen through our local hospital and it was just a ED visit. It did say on the chart that the patient did have diarrhea, but when I spoke to the mother, she denied it. She also reported I had already, I don't know how many salmonella I had already been investigating, but it was just kind of odd. The patient had chills, loss of appetite, malaise, fatigue. There was around a 10-pound weight loss, yellowing of skin, sunken eyes, dark circles under the eyes, and it took the patient around 21 days to fully recover. Just because I did follow up later on with the mom just to kind of see how the patient was doing as well. Interesting as well, the family had traveled to like deeper south in Mexico for almost a month. They had traveled through airplane, but they had traveled through like those Greyhounds, but through Mexico. They had visited Chiapas, Acapulco, Guanajuato, Pachuca, and the patient ate multiple, like, various types of foods. But just pretty much what stood out was just the symptoms, and, that just the way the child, had presented with the symptoms. And normally after, I conduct like interviews, I'll go ahead and sit down with Benito, and we'll go ahead and discuss the cases. And then, we were discussing, and I told him, hey, you know what, this child kind of presented with these odd symptoms, what do you think? And then we used that manual, what is it called?
Case investigation.
Yeah, it's the manual. We reviewed, typhoid and how it presented itself. So then we ended up contacting Mackenzie and just kind of told her, like, hey, this is what we found. Like, what do you think? So then, we gave her a heads up. And then what we ended up doing is just making sure we contacted our laboratory through the hospital, and just making sure, hey, can you make sure this is sent out? We just want to make sure that, the state receives it. And I think just what also helped, just kind of really kind of good listening skills, because the mom was pretty concerned too. She said, like, my child got pretty sick, and just kind of good listening skills, and kind of thinking outside the box, I would say. Kind of sounds like a cliche, but just kind of thinking, like, you know what, this was kind of odd. These symptoms were kind of weird, the travel, how long they had traveled, and then we ended up, after we did end up using, I ended up contacting the mom again, because just to get more information because we did use another report sheet. It was the CDC typhoid and paratyphoid fever surveillance report. So that one, it does ask a lot of the same questions on the DSO, but it was asking, like, if the patient was born here. So I followed up with the mom and asked, like, hey, were they born here or somewhere else? It asked about the sensitivity on the blood culture, if it was ran, and I think mainly just the good listening skills. And I don't know if you guys have had any, kind of weird, cases, and how you guys go about them as well. So any other good tips would be good. I don't know if Benito wants to add anything else.
No.
Hey, Alicia. Oh, sorry. I had a quick question for you, Alicia. Was this a blood culture? Did you say that?
Yes, it was a blood culture. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add I know the mom also had symptoms too, but she wasn't, they didn't run a culture on her, but I know that they had similar symptoms, but not as bad as the boy. So.
Yeah, well, we got our attention. It was the symptoms, basically. It was a blood culture, no diarrhea, but also, the weight loss and the long time to recover. So the reason, this is not the usual presentation for salmonella, the usual ones that we see, and then the travel history. So this is the reason we say, okay, something is weird, so we need additional testing. And that was when we contact, you guys, and thank you. So, lady was confirmed. There was typhoid fever, and that's it. So go ahead, Merle. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I was just going to praise you guys, because when you're watchful of that, like, this does not sound like typical salmonella. That's a really good clue that you might be dealing with typhoid fever, even before we get that typing back. So way to go. And also want to just let you know how great it was that you were able to call back the mom of this case patient and just ask the follow-up questions. And, we shouldn't be afraid to do that. A lot of people are just really open to just getting one more call or even two more calls just to follow up a little. So way to go.
I agree. I think when you have those weird gut feelings, like something doesn't seem right here, it's never a bad idea to run it past one of us. We love the weird stuff. And we like to figure it out too. So I think that's great where your sort of gut instinct can benefit you. So we have about 5 more minutes. Does anybody have any questions for Alicia about the presentation or anything else that's come up today?
I don't really have a question. I did just want to have just one comment about there are a lot of infographics and fact sheets related to almost everything I talked about today: tiny turtles, live poultry, raw milk, and I will make sure we get those out to you all so you can have them and send them to any cases that are interested in them. So just FYI.
Yeah, I think offering to email resources to patients is great. You know, sometimes it's an extra step. They have to give you your email address, but, you know, it can be a really helpful way to interface with people and get them written information that actually is going to be helpful for them down the road.
Mackenzie, you're muted.
Thank you. I said if no one else will talk, I will. Coconino County made a great suggestion to us recently. They said, you have all these great resources, but we need to put them in one place. And so I want to let you know that we are working on a foodborne or enteric disease investigation resources page. And it's going to have lots of cool things that we've provided to you, as well as links to these educational resources and infographics that Brenna's referring to. So hopefully we'll have just a centralized place for you to go when you get an enteric case or need educational things to email to families. That should be nice and easy for you. And if you have any suggestions about what should be on there, we're always open to that. Okay. Any burning final thoughts from weird exposures? I once had a case who was convinced that they were sick from their pet fish, and I wasn't sure if they were sick from their pet fish. Anybody ever had anything like this? Had a weird aquarium?
Oh, like a case?
Yeah.
Like a case for an aquarium for fish. There was one.
That was what they thought. Maybe they were cleaning their fish tank and got sick. I still don't know the answer. I feel like it's possible. Maria, did you have a thought or question?
I just had a question. Any concerns about bunnies? Since Easter is coming up and you see bunnies more than normal. I mean, I just wanted to know if there was any concerns about that.
That's really great. I've seen a few of my friends on Facebook who have had photos taken with their kids and bunnies, and I sort of giggle to myself. I can't think of off the top of my head of it being a huge concern. I wouldn't completely rule it out just because it is an animal and it could have mingled with other animals. But I don't know. Mary Lee, you're shaking your head no. We don't think we've heard anything. You can get tularemia from bunnies, but probably not a bunny like that, like a wild rabbit that's outside. But either way, it's always a good idea to give them some education about animals and what they can have on them and how their feces really get everywhere.
Or hand washing. When in doubt, just wash your hands more.
Yeah. Yep.
I just want to mention on the salmonella on those, not frequent animals. I had in the past, and I don't remember when it was, but I got a case of salmonella in a teenager related with the sugar glider. And actually, the vet collect the specimen and send it to the state. And actually, the sugar glider is there as a case admits it. You can, well, it is. So don't ask me. I don't remember the name, but it's there because it tests exactly the same, And yeah, because the doc called me and I said, I don't know, but you can take, the little, pet to the vet, and then the vet collect the the rectal swab. And I guess, I don't know how he ended on the state, but he ended there, and it was salmonella, actually. The same exact match.
Well, and maybe we do need to watch out for bunnies. That's great. Sugar gliders are great, weird little animals. So yeah, you can really get it from lots of things, and the cleaning of the cages really is a big place where folks can get it. Okay, we have 1 minute left. Any other questions, or we can go ahead and close it out? Okay, well, we have one final week of season 3 of the Collab. It's going to be Food History 201. So bring all your burning questions, and we will learn how to dig in and get lots of gory details from people. So thank you so much. And as always, feel free to reach out via phone or email if you have any questions or thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Una.